Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us for the VocTech Seed webinar. My name is Rebecca Garrett-Waters. I'm the Chief Executive of the UEFA Charitable Trust. The way we're looking to run this session is that we will have a relatively short presentation where I'll give an overview of what UEFA and what the call is all about, and then we'll have questions at the end. The slides will be available afterwards, and the session is being recorded, so if you do want to re-listen to it at any stage, you can ask us for that. We have a fairly high number of registrations today. We've kind of currently got about 40 people on, so I'm going to make a start. There is a questions panel, so if you want to type questions in as we go along, what I'll do is when we get to the end of the session, I will get to them in the order they've come in for me. And my colleague Faye is also on the webinar, so she's going to keep an eye on any questions that come in that are either technical issues or that need answering whilst we're going along, but also keep me in check so that I've definitely answered everything. But if as I go through things you feel I haven't answered a question, you're welcome to repose it. So I will get started on the presentation, and please do give me a shout, or give the questions a shout rather, if you need any support or help with things as we go along. So as I said, I'm Rebecca Garrett-Waters, the Chief Exec of UFI. And the agenda for the presentation is that and about our vision, and then I'll come on to more detail on the grant call itself, and go into detail about what we're looking for through applications, and then a bit on how to apply and where you can find any further help or support. So UFI Charitable Trust is a grant giving organisation, and we became a grant giving body in 2012, and our first funding round of VocTech seed calls was in 2014. Now we like to talk about changing how we think about learning, and this slide for me is one of my personal favourites, because obviously we're fairly young as a grant awarding body, and this slide represents six projects that were funded through the first seed round. And I think they show the difference between the different kinds of projects we fund, the different kinds of technology, the different kinds of industries, and the different ways that people can interact with skills. And these are all real photos from real projects, which is one of the reasons it's one of my personal favourites. So we have the land-based industries, Morriscott College, Kuppa, which I'll come to later as a case study. We have using AR in a manufacturing environment, Maker Club, Nano Simbox, which uses motion sensor technology, and they're all very different and all great parts of the UFI project family. So we are an independent grant giver, which is important because it gives us flexibility in how we fund things and what we fund. We don't fundraise, and we don't take funding from any public sector partners, so that we're entirely independent around the decisions we make. We have a focus on the development of digital technology to deliver adult vocational skills. The premise behind what we do is that the UK needs more and better workplace skills. So ultimately we're looking for more skills for more people, and we believe that digital technology will unlock this. So how do we think we can help? How do we think we can achieve it? We know with the size of our core funds that we can't change everything, but we do believe that we can catalyse change. So we look for projects that look at new or innovative ways of doing things, either delivering skills or supporting learning, or that take things that have been established in other sectors or areas and apply it to delivering skills for the workplace. There's a question we're asked often about what we're looking to achieve, and ultimately we want there to be better skills better skills for the UK, more skills for the UK, and more opportunities for individuals. And how we think we can achieve that by catalysing things is through demonstrating the art of the possible. So we like to fund projects that show that things can be done differently and things can be done better. Better learner outcomes and better outcomes for employers or learning providers. As part of this, we believe that supporting and creating a VocTech market, so making investment in organisations that are focused on delivering skills for the workplace and for adults, making investing in that sector an exciting and viable and desirable business opportunity, and also ultimately changing the way we learn, so that opportunities for individuals and opportunities for employers are improved. So VocTech Seed 2017. Very simply, the funding is up to £50,000 for a project. It's up to 12 months, and we're looking for innovative solutions or innovative tech. We want something to be new about what you're proposing to do. We envisage that projects will be at a relatively early stage of development, and the call is currently open and closes on the 25th of May. We used to call this our demonstrator fund when we first started, but it became clear that different people had different expectations around what a demonstrator is. But the very kind of simple premise behind it is that we want to demonstrate what could be done. So we're looking for projects that have potential. We don't expect them to deliver changing the world within a 12-month period or with £50,000. But what we want to do is fund projects that could do something in the future. So where there is a vision for impact for those projects. We want you to tell us about your idea. Why is it different to solutions and things that already exist? And I always describe that as the change the world question. What's the potential for your idea? If everything succeeded and everything worked as you hope, what will change as a result? How will your idea impact on the UK? Will it be through more people gaining skills? Will it be better learner outcomes or better routes to employment? We want to understand why you're passionate about what you're doing. So the grants are available, as I said, for up to 50,000 and up to 12 months, and it very much is up to. We don't expect every project to be 50,000 and every project to be 12 months. And we want you to tell us why you need the amount of money that you're putting into your application. It doesn't have to be £50,000 total project cost either. So if you wanted to apply for a grant for 50,000, but you were putting in something £10,000 of your own organisation's funding, that's fine too. We don't have a preference for projects that are matched. We firmly believe that with this particular call, this is a seed fund, and we know there will be lots of different shapes and sizes of organisations, and we wanted to offer a very kind of clean, a clean grant fund that doesn't require any match funding. So VocTech Seed is similar to calls that we ran in 2015 and 2016, but this year we've renamed all of our funding streams to try and be clearer about what we're doing, and to make sure that we can clearly differentiate between the different grant calls and different funding streams we have. So VocTech Seed is part of our work to create a pipeline of new approaches, and one of the things we want to understand through your application is how the funding that you're asking for is going to make a difference, and why it should receive charitable funding. What we are looking for are projects that are novel in their approach, and or technology, or the sector, or the people that they're targeting, the community of learners. We want to see a clear understanding of the vocational market that you're looking to address, and we want you to show us that you understand the needs of the employers and the learners that you're talking about. We want you to be able to describe how it's going to be delivered in addition to the technical advances, and it's very important to us that there are plans within your project to test with relevant users, and most importantly to use the feedback from that testing in the development of the project. So there's a range of start points because, as I said, this was a sort of demonstrator. It was originally a demonstrator project. The idea is that the projects will come to us in all sorts of different shapes and sizes. So you could have an existing prototype, you could have extensive knowledge of the sector you're targeting and a very clear problem or challenge that you're trying to address. You could have an existing solution in another market. For instance, you could have a project that's very clearly working in schools, and what you want to do with our funding is to look at how that could be used for adults in the workplace. Or it could be that you're delivering something within a particular industry sector, and you feel that with our funding you could open it up and widen it so that it reaches out to a different sector and that will allow it to have far greater impact. Or a different group of learners, the same thing. You could have a very innovative technology, and you feel that with our funding you can significantly advance the development of that so that you will have a much bigger impact much more quickly. So if they're the start points, where will your project end up? We want at the end of the projects for there to be for you to have a solution that's been tested with a number of users. It doesn't have to be a small number of users, but it would be at least a small number of users. We want you to be able to demonstrate the potential impact that what you're doing can have, and we also want you to exit our funding with a plan for your route to market and a plan for scaling up. The golden thread that runs through everything we do is scale. So it goes back to the idea of more skills for more people more of the time. We are trying to achieve a change that will affect large numbers of people across the country. And at the end of the project, we want you to have a business model, a plan for financial sustainability. That will look different for every project. If you're a very commercial organisation, it's going to be very much a kind of a business model and financial plan in the traditional sense. But it could be to do with a charity finding partners or building new delivery models. So who can apply? All industries, sectors and technologies. This is an open call. The key thing for us is that, not the key thing for us, but the key thing in kind of one of our legal requirements is that the beneficiaries are UK based. So what we look at when we assess the project is our UK beneficiaries. You can be any kind of organisation, and you can have any kind of shape or size, but we obviously need to understand why you're applying for a charitable grant. So if you are a very large organisation, you will need to make it very, very clear why VocTech Seed is an appropriate fund for you, and why you should be getting charitable funding. We're looking at vocational skills for the workplace. Now, there are lots of different ways of cutting terminology, but what we think and what we believe is the key for this grant funding call. So for us, adults mean 16 plus, but we do recognise that, particularly with digital tech, there's likely to be some fuzzy boundaries, particularly in the 14 to 16 group. We are looking at vocational skills for the workplace. So you have to show us why the skill that you are targeting, or the learners that you are targeting, are going to be using the skill they've gained in the workplace. Now that could be skills that are specific to an industry or sector, or it could be broader literacy and numeracy skills. But what we don't fund are generic job seeking or employability skills, such as writing your CV or career planning or time management. We talk about a focus on the unloved, which is always, it's a slightly woolly term, and in many ways that's deliberate, because the unloved cuts in so many different ways that we broadly view the FE sector as quite unloved at the moment, given the kind of general policy on it. And we also look at unloved industries or sectors in very sort of flippant terms. I always say what that means. If you think about it in very simple terms, we'll fund a project that looks at food preparation in schools, but we're not going to fund a project that is for rocket scientists. So I think it's a kind of a common sense measure. You have to explain to us why the people you're targeting aren't going to get this provision in any other way, or why you can really help with the digital tech. So what types of digital technology? Essentially everything. The digital, we kind of say it can be network, software, content, hardware. The fundamental is that we're interested in mechanisms for mass reach. What we're looking for is going back to that golden thread of scale, more skills for more people, more of the time. So what we need you to do is explain to us why the type of tech that you're talking about, whether that's hardware, software, networks, systems, whatever it may be, why what you're talking about has the potential for mass reach. So what don't we fund? So we don't fund routine business or routine product development, things that should be being done anyway, because it is impossible to justify that in terms of giving a charitable grant. We don't fund standard content development, and what we mean there is we are trying to catalyse change. So just funding another course that looks exactly the same in terms of the way it's in the sense of the way it's being delivered or the way it's being presented is just the same as all the other courses. There's absolutely no chance of that catalysing change. So think about why what you're doing is different. We don't fund projects in schools, and we don't fund research projects. And we, as I said before, we don't fund projects for beneficiaries outside the UK. So that's who's going to benefit from your project. We don't fund basic digital skills. So that's very much the kind of learning how to use Office or getting online. But we have identified, what we do say is that if you can demonstrate that for an industry or specific industry or sector, there is a very clear need for digital skill, and you can articulate it and evidence that, then we are open to your application. We don't fund life skills, as I said, such as CV building or time management, and we don't fund purchase of training. And that's a very simple. We won't give you a grant to go and buy 20 training courses for your staff. So we talk about demonstrating the art of the possible. And I mentioned before that we want VocTech seed projects to contribute to a pipeline of new ideas. One of the aspirations behind this fund is that one of the things we're looking at doing is looking at all the points in the process where funding will help to make a change. And we very quickly came to the view that actually there's a point where we wanted to make sure that people weren't going to just go automatically think about EdTech for schools or for higher education and universities, but actually think about developing EdTech specifically for the workplace. So start to have a pipeline of really, really exciting ideas that were explicitly developed or targeted at skills for work. We expect all our projects to support our mission and support our vision. So we want you to showcase your experience of delivering the project. We want you to kind of shout about the benefits of what you've done and become a champion for VocTech. We want you to become active members of a community, so that because we think there are an enormous amount of benefits to bringing people together. I know we're not the only people who think that. And so that's one of the reasons we run our successful projects as cohorts for each call, and try and have shared opportunities for either workshops to support the project development, or developing pitches, or all sorts of different things. And on that active community point, one of the mandatory conditions of funding is to attend a kick-off workshop where you will meet all of the other successful projects and what I always call the graduating projects from the previous cohort. And that's a fantastic opportunity to kind of build relationships, but also meet people who may have useful and kind of parallel benefits in terms of the projects that they're delivering. I wanted to provide just a couple of case studies to give you a sense of the sorts of things we've funded in the past. I'm always very clear that we fund a very, very eclectic and highly varied project portfolio. So these are not projects that are a shape and size that you need to emulate, but I wanted to give you a sense of the different sorts of things we funded in the past. So this project is, and also why we funded them. So this project is Kuppa, which is a micro-learning project. The idea being that it's sips of learning, and that you can get the learning in the time it takes you to drink a cup of tea. One of the reasons that this project was successful in the application process was that the applicants demonstrated a very sound knowledge of the sector they were targeting, and a very clear understanding of the problem that they were looking to solve. And the funding allowed them to develop that product and take it out, and they're now working with care providers. So this is a nice example of how having a good understanding of your sector can really help you be successful. So this project is Stardash Studios, which is numeracy without numbers. So the concept underneath this is that actually maths, as people see it, mathematics is not the same as functional maths, and actually the skills people need for work are things like estimation and an understanding of numeric concepts. So this is it's a game, it's a runner game, and it's based on a runner on a film set, but embedded within it are challenges, so maths challenges. And one of the reasons we like this is that the applicant had an incredibly strong understanding of the pedagogy and the things that needed to underpin the delivery of this. And one of the reasons we like this project and use it as a case study is that they really worked with the UEFA project manager to understand what could make it a success in terms of its look and feel and how it was delivered. And within the game, in the maths challenge, so the game, so last time I checked, so a little while ago now, but the last time I checked, it had been downloaded 19,000 times. But the really exciting thing for us is that the maths challenges that are embedded within it, which are obviously the thing that we really want people to do, have been played over 87,000 times. So it was a real sense that people were actually engaging with the thing that we believe will really help them improve their skills. And then there's the British Hospitality Association, which we've included this as a case study because it's a really nice example of a sector body that had applied to us that felt that they could provide support for their SME members. And we did this is a pilot about food hygiene and food handling, specifically testing it with SMEs. And it was great because the feedback from this project was that the SME users saw a visible improvement in the skills of the young people that were engaging with the game. And it just showed that you can actually, none of the SME members on their own could have afforded to have taken this, progressed this kind of project or this kind of training material. But actually an industry body, now the industry body has the skills to understand how you commission a game, how you develop it, and how you kind of put the underpinning pedagogy within it. Now they understand that, they are equipped to go out and support their SME members in further development, and also it kind of showcases how this can be done in other industries. So that leads me to a question of what sort of organisations should apply. It's open to anyone can apply. The only thing we don't fund are individuals, but an individual can apply as long as they have plans in and can demonstrate their plans in place to become a registered organisation. We always say it's particularly suitable for early stage businesses and smaller digital innovators and other organisations who are looking to test new approaches on a small scale, or digital innovators working in other markets who can see this as an opportunity to adapt a product or an approach to vocational learning, or edtech businesses who are looking to expand into the vocational market. But what must projects look like? So these are the kind of absolute fundamentals. You have to focus on vocational learning, and you have to show in your application an understanding of the vocational learning and define the challenge that you're trying to address. You must plan to test with relevant users, and I can't stress this enough, you must plan to use the feedback from those users in product development. You need to be ambitious with your project, in as much as we need to see what your vision is. So we don't expect you to realise that vision over the 12 months, but we do expect you to be looking to the long term and what a large number of learners would look like and where the potential lies within your project. And we want you to have a plan for what will happen at the end of our funding. That may change as you do the testing and go through it, but we want to see that you understand the steps that you will be taking at the other side. And most importantly, we want you to be realistic and deliverable within the time frame. Don't promise us the world, because we won't believe you. Promise us the things you can deliver, and we will be. We've got enough experience to be able to see when things are being overpromised, but also it's perfectly acceptable to put in a project that's going to be 10 months long and cost 50,000, or a project that's going to be 8 months long and cost 25,000. There's no benefit or kind of importance given to any particular amount or time scale. So to do what's right for your project. I wanted to just touch on our charitable status, because we are a charity, it means that all of our funding decisions have to create public benefit. And what that means is our applicants have to be clear about why you think your approach will work and what your target audience is. And we need to in your budgeting within the project, you just need to be clear about the fact that the project costs are directly related to those to deliver the project, and we need to understand why our funding is going to make a difference. So we have to make sure our grant funding fits with our charitable objects, and our charitable objects are very specifically around education and industry and commerce. And what that means is, even if what you're doing is fundamentally a good thing, we can only look at it through an education or industry and commerce lens. So however noble the learning or teaching that is embedded within your project is, that's not going to count towards our own charitable objects. So how to apply? We have an online application process. So you register at the website, which means you can access and save and complete your application. It's a two-stage application process. So success at stage 1 will take you through to, you'll be invited to stage 2. And an assessment at each stage is undertaken by an expert panel. Our review is undertaken by an expert panel. And then the ultimate funding decision, as with everything that we do, is made by the UFI Board of Trustees. This is an important point, because what it means is that there will be people who are looking at your application who do not come from a technology background or who do not come from a learning background. And that means that you need to have a very clear statement at the front end of it that says, this is what my project is and this is what it's going to do. Do not assume any level of experience or understanding of either the tech or the learning or the pedagogy or whatever it is that you're putting forward to us. So my advice would be, or our advice would be, run that bit, if nothing else, run that bit past somebody else who doesn't know what you do, or who has a very loose understanding of what you do, whether that's, you know, your mum or someone that you go down the pub with, or whatever else it may be. Just try it on someone else, and then if they understand what you've explained, you're probably good to go. So what to expect if you're successful? Now, we are a partnership funder. Once you get funded, you're part of the UFI family. If you don't want to be part of the, if you don't want to be part of the project family, and you don't want an active and engaged dialogue with your funder, please don't apply, because we like to have regular contact between the UFI team and the projects, partly because that allows us to build the links and the networks, and partly because it allows us to help you succeed with what you're hoping to achieve. So each project has a UFI project manager who's your key point of contact within UFI. And the first step is a PID, or project implementation document, which will set out all the things the milestones, the delivery arrangements, the payment gateways, all of those things. We know each project is unique, so the idea is that we work with you to agree what's best and most reasonable. And part of that is knowing that things change. We try and operate in a very agile way, so the route to your end goal might change. In fact, we would be very surprised if your project did exactly what it said it was going to do at the start. We welcome adaptation to user feedback, or adaptation to change within the wider landscape. And that's absolutely right and proper. What we ask for you is honesty and openness to kind of talking to us about any problems before they arise, or before they become critical. Oh, the other thing, I've said it before, I'm going to say it again. We have our kickoff launch on the 2nd of November, which is where we'll have the new C projects together, and also the graduating class of 2016 or 20. I suppose they graduate in 2017. I don't know. Those projects that were awarded funding in 2016 will be there as well, and that's a mandatory condition of funding. So how's it go? As I said, online application close on the 25th of May. It closes at 5 o'clock. There are no exceptions. It doesn't matter if the dog ate your homework or someone dug up your broadband. We have to be very strict about it. It's 5 o'clock on the 25th of May. I would suggest, my absolute piece of advice would be, aim for the day before, or aim for midday at the very least, and then you've given yourself a small window. You probably won't be surprised to hear that we get something like 50% of all applications come in the last 15 minutes, which is crazy. And so then we open stage 2 on the 29th of June. As I said, that's invitation only from stage 1. What we are trying to increase this year is the success rate. So as part of that, our intention is to give you the questions that were asked at stage 1 when we invite you to stage 2. So you have a lot of detail on the sorts of things we'll be looking for. And then we'll make the final decision in September. And then, as I said, kick-off workshop. So where to find help? We do, although the kind of formal, this is the last of the webinars, and the formal workshop program for this call is finished, we do sometimes piggyback on other people's events. So there may still be an opportunity to come along to something where we're at if you want an informal chat. But our website has fairly comprehensive FAQs and guidance, so you can visit there. Or you can follow us on Twitter and LinkedIn, because we are, as you may know, an entirely virtual organisation, so we have no office. And because of that, we try and use our social media to the best of our abilities. So for all our broadcasts and updates. But if you also register for our newsletter, that has regular news about the opening of grant calls, and also when projects have been awarded. So if you find yourself maybe you don't want to apply, but you're actually really interested in what gets through, and whether or not you can work with one of those projects, then that's a nice way of keeping in touch. So these are the info at address is the other thing. If you have any questions, particularly technical ones, if you have any problems, but also around eligibility or any other things, you can always drop us an email to info@ufi.co.uk, and one of the team will get back to you within 24 hours. And then yes, that's our website address and Twitter handle. So what I will do now is I hope that everyone heard me and I haven't just been talking to myself. And then I'm going to get to the questions in the order they've come in. So the first question is, when will winners be notified? The intention is, we don't have a specific date for the notification, but I'm struggling now. if you drop an email to info@, we can give you a specific date, but it will be early September. Unfortunately, we weren't able to align it with academic sessions this year because we are because the trustees make all the decisions, that we're slightly tied to their predetermined board schedule. So we're looking at how we address that next year, but that's what we're up to now. But if you want to drop an email to info@, we should be able to give you a specific date for notification. If enough people want to know, we will also put that on we can put a window during which we'll notify people onto the website. Okay, so the next question is, do you need to be incorporated in the UK? So I'm paraphrasing, but do you need to incorporate in the UK? The simple answer is no, but you have to make it very clear why the beneficiaries those that will benefit from the project will be in the UK. And it's probably, if you are a non-UK company, it would be wise to make that as strong and sound as possible in your application. So the next question is, does the project have to focus on adults in the workplace? The project has to focus on adults, and it has to be skills for the workplace, but those adults can be based in college, or they could be unemployed, or they could be in a workplace, but you could be looking at a skill to get them into an entirely different one to improve their career prospects. So the skills are for the workplace, but it doesn't have to be people who are at work. And also we look at both formal and informal learning. So the next question is also around having an office in the UK, which I think I've just answered, but just to very quickly revisit it, you don't have to be a UK-based company, you just have to show why the beneficiaries are in the UK. And yes, the slides will be available afterwards. If you want a copy directly, you can drop us a line to info@, but they're also on the website. They'll also be on the website. So the next question is, do you consider projects aimed at A-level students, subjects like psychology or law or sociology? That's an interesting question. So we don't fund projects that are aimed at students in school, and we need to understand why it's a vocational skill. So it would need to articulate very clearly why the level that you're talking about and the subject matter that you're focusing on is a skill for the workplace. And you would also need to make it clear why what you're doing is different, and why it will be targeting people that aren't currently not able to access those skills, or not able to, why the outcomes are so poor, or whatever it may be. So that the fundamental goal for us is more people in work with good skills that are going to boost the UK. So if you have that at the back of your mind, all of those kind of aspirations for UFI, that should help you answer the question about whether what you're trying to do is eligible for our funding round. If I haven't answered that question in the way you thought I was going to, or I've misunderstood it, feel free to re-ask it in a different way, obviously. The next question is, do you fund projects that develop workplace and entrepreneurial skills such as communication, teamwork and creativity? That's a slightly grey area for us, because we say we don't fund kind of life skills. However, if you can make it clear what the opportunity is, so what the industry need is, or the challenge that you're addressing, then it will be eligible. If you submit a project that says this is to help people with communication skills and teamwork skills because it is fundamentally a good thing, that is not eligible. But if you can say to us, within the retail sector, it has been clearly identified that communication skills are a significant barrier to unskilled young people gaining and retaining jobs, and we want to do a project that looks at that that will pilot a different approach to addressing this, then that would be eligible. So the next question is, can you submit more than one project? And the simple answer is yes, but due to a slight system issue that we're trying to sort out, you need to set up a new account for each project that you submit. The one thing I would say is, if you're going to submit more than one project, make sure they're really good, because there's nothing worse than a kind of scatter approach of applications, and you're left with this sense that it would have been much better for someone to have really focused on one good project rather than doing lots of little ones. So the next question is, can applications be made in partnership? Although the questioner has left, I'm still going to answer it, which is very simply, yes, it can. There's another question about Finland. Essentially, what you have to do is show us that your beneficiaries are in the UK. We don't mind where you are, but we need to understand why A, your beneficiaries are in the UK, and B, how that is then going to be anchored in the UK. So you're not just piloting it here to get the funding and then go somewhere else. That the long-term aspiration for your project is also UK based. The next question is stage 2 in person? And the simple answer is no, it's all online application. The next question is about a business aimed at primary schools, but the long-term aim is inspiring disengaged learners and plugging the skills gap. So the product is playing a longer game because you're starting at a younger age, so it's being delivered via schools. The simple answer is no. We do not fund schools projects. We fund projects where the skills are being delivered to adults, so people of 16 plus. We recognise the importance of the long-term education of young people, so that they are in a good place by the time they get to 16. But we also, that is not our remit, so it wouldn't be eligible. So Claire, thank you for letting me know that the question was answered. The next question is, in the process of preparing the budget for the stage 1 application, can we clarify what activities or capital expenses the grant can or cannot be used to fund? We can't fund the overheads, the general overheads and running costs of a non-charitable organisation. That's just charity law. Other than that, we fund any costs that you can demonstrate are explicitly connected to delivering the project. So we don't have a kind of a list of yes and no's. We just ask that you show us what you need to do to deliver the project and what that's going to cost. So the next question, so just to come back to that one, if you don't feel I've answered it and you want to come back to me, please do, or if you want to drop a more detailed question about it to info@, feel free to. So the next question is around the success ratio between those who pass stage 1 and those who will be funded. It's a difficult question to answer, because obviously this is the third time we've done this kind of funding call, and each time we do it, my aspiration is to improve the success rate. So we don't have a formula that we stick to. There's not a number of projects that we look either to fund overall or to take through from one stage to the other. The first time we did it, so in 2015, we probably took more projects through to stage 2 than the ratio of success at stage 2 was less in 2015, and it got better the following year because we were more confident about those projects that we took through. And hopefully this year, with the increased granularity of feedback between stage 1 and stage 2, the success rate will significantly improve again. So it's difficult to say, but I cannot give you a specific answer to that question. So I hope that's answered it in part. Fundamentally, when we take projects from stage 1 to stage 2, it's because we believe there is a fundable idea there. And then projects that don't get funded at stage 2, it is usually because they have been unable to either evidence the thing that they're trying to achieve, or convince us of their budget, or, and this happens a disappointing amount, articulate very clearly the kind of the simple idea rather of the thing that they are trying to achieve. So the next question is, if a vocational sector project has been successful in a previous round, is it unlikely that the same sector will be selected this time? The simple answer is no. Particularly with SEED, our aspiration is to look at lots of different ways of doing things, and we don't feel that because we funded one project, because these are quite small projects in the grand scheme of things, that's necessarily that there isn't one solution for every sector and every part of the country and every technology. So we are still interested in different ways of doing things, and also as time moves on, technology changes. So the limits of technology 2 years ago have been crossed, and there are now more opportunities and more different ways of doing things, and more people are on board with how you can engage with tech. So there is always change. There's always change in everything, but particularly where you're looking at digital technology. The next question is, could we expand on our definition of what you consider vocational learning? So you'd be proposing offering learning to micro business owners and women who are working from home. Particularly with those sorts of projects, that kind of covers a lot of enterprise and entrepreneurial skills. The key challenge for you is to demonstrate the evidence of need, and rather than it just be a project that talks about it as a fundamentally good thing. If you, for instance, are working with a route to market, so you have a body, you have a group of people that you have already identified as the target, who you know that you can work with to deliver the learning that you're talking about, then that gives it a much stronger chance of success. We do get a high number of business skills projects that kind of work on the premise of, if everybody was better at understanding business planning, it would be fundamentally a good thing, and more people would be setting up businesses. And because of the nature of what our remit is and the way we work, that is not a strong enough argument for us to be able to fund a project. The next question is, what qualifies as vocational learning? Does emotional self-management qualify? This sort of comes back to the answer I gave the previous questioner. You have to show us why the skill that you're trying to give learners, is going to be used in the workplace in a way that you can evidence the need and it not be fundamentally a good thing. So if you have an industry group that is saying this time management is a significant barrier to people in the food preparation sector developing key skills required or developing as employees within that sector, and therefore this project will address that would be fine. If you said we're going to offer some free training on time management that will be accessible via the internet, and that therefore fundamentally good thing, that would not be eligible, or would rather not make it through. The next question is, do you consider A-level subjects based in colleges supporting schools? I think what you're saying is, would we consider people doing A-levels in colleges as an ineligible because it's a schools project? And the simple answer is no. We don't. It's very, very specific. It's like Brexit means Brexit, but schools means schools for us. So colleges, anything happening in colleges is eligible. And the next question is, how can you get to use the Kuppa outcomes? If by outcomes you mean the results of the project, drop an email to info@ and we can put you in touch with the UFI project manager. And the next question is, do you support projects that are already in place? The answer to that is yes, but you need to show us why what we're funding, why you need our funding, and it's not just a kind of another drop in a big ocean of funds to keep a machine turning, that it's actually we are funding a specific project that's going to catalyse a change. The next question is around the Children's Food Trust. The Children's Food Trust project was funded by UFI, yeah. It was through a different fund a long time ago when we didn't actually have funding calls. There was a one big call that looked at projects of any shape or size, and it didn't really get. I wasn't in post. It was an entirely virtual organisation with no staff at the time, and it didn't really work out in terms of getting projects in. So it was a very poor success rate. So we have now taken the decision to do much more calls with specific boundaries so that we can help people understand exactly what we're looking for and really improve success rates of applications. Okay, the next question, but if you want more detail on it, feel free to drop us an email and we can give you, again, put you in touch with someone who knows much more about it. Would you fund a project that was aimed at assisting adults with a particular disability, assisting them in unlocking developing skills? And the very broad answer is yes, but you'd have to show us why it was, as I said before, that the golden thread that runs through everything we do is scale. So we'd need to understand why, if what your project is proposing to do is successful, why that there is a big enough sector of the community that's going to make a fundamental difference across the whole country. Okay, the next question is around a community of 30,000 people and 800 people paying. This would be a new project to address needs you found that people want to pay for us to solve. Difficult for me to answer, to say too much on that without knowing more detail. In very broad theoretical terms, that sounds reasonable. You have to explain to us why you want us to fund it and why it's not routine business development. But yeah, that's the answer to that one. The presentation, yes, you can have the presentation. Yes, it will be on the website. If you struggle to find it, again, send us an email and we'll send you a link or send you the presentation. The next question is around the grey area. Give examples that are sector specific. What if the research is robust but not tied to a particular sector? I think it's a kind of, this is a sort of part of the common sense question. Sort of do a bit of soul searching and ask yourself whether there's a very clear vocational need, a workplace need, a job need, as opposed to being fundamentally a good thing. And that's kind of the way you need to kind of really look at your project. Without knowing the specifics of it, I don't think I can go into much more detail on it, in that the key thing for us is, what's the challenge you're trying to solve? What's the need? How will there be better skills for more people, and therefore people more able to access jobs and more able to be better at their jobs at the end of it, in a very kind of practical way, in a very tangible way, rather than it just being fundamentally good. But thank you to both the leavers for letting me know. The next question is, would we fund a project that was similar to past projects if it was a different learner group? We have a similar idea to Kuppa around looking after young people and care leavers. Yes, although we would recommend strongly that you drop us a line and have a word with the
drop us a line about it, and we can put you in touch with the project manager for Kuppa anyway. So because even we'll be interested in your project, it sounds eligible, but aside from that, it's probably worth a conversation anyway, because we're always happy to share learning and experience about projects that have happened. You know, obviously not confidential commercial detail, but certainly it's nice to build a community. So the next question is around VR learning system facilitating carer and learner moving and providing home visits. I'm not sure what the question is, but it sounds eligible. So that's my basic answer. At the moment, that's I don't have, oh, thank you, Penelope. I'm not picking up any further questions, so I'm going to kind of wait a couple of minutes just to make sure that no one has any last minute flashes of questioning. But if failing that, we'll shut down the web session. And as I said, the slides will be available, and also the session is being recorded. So if you did want to have that, you would be able to. But the slides and FAQs are available on the website. So thank you everybody for joining us. Oh, we have a question around biotech. Do we fund biotech? Yes, I suppose so. In very broad terms, you'd have to tell us what you were. We clearly don't fund biotech, but skills for biotech. You know, if you could explain to us what they were, then yes, they would be eligible. But yes. So the biotech question is around measuring blood markers to prevent diabetes and heart disease. That we fund projects that deliver skills. So if you're talking about a project to help people understand how to use the measurements in order to make sensible kind of diagnostic decisions, or looking at skills to help people understand what the outputs of the blood marker measurement are, then that's eligible. If you're talking about a project that's looking at measuring a blood measurement project, then that wouldn't be eligible. We're not a biotech funder. We're very explicitly a skills, digital technology for vocational skills funder. Ah, I see. There's the other end of your question. Providing education to users. I'm not. We would only, in that situation, we don't fund the education of the populace, if you see what I mean. So we don't for social reasons. So we don't fund kind of skills for living, if you see what I mean, which it sounds like you might be talking about. What we would fund is the skills for staff. If we're talking about the user being the person who uses, I'm not sure whether you're talking about at this point whether you're talking about an end user or a staff user, but essentially it's skills for the workplace. And in that instance, we would fund a project that was about education. If you were developing a tool that was going to help with the education of medical staff or non-medical staff in order for them to be able to use some sort of blood measurement tool, that would be eligible. But if the bulk of the project is around the development of the kit to actually do the testing, that's not eligible. Okay, I'm aware we've overrun, but I'm hoping that oh, sorry, no, another one. But okay, I hope Mark Martin, if you think I haven't answered your question, then please do drop us an info at email. But essentially, thank you to everybody. If you've had problems with sound, then do drop us an email. although we've lost the person with the sound problems. Sorry, final question. Funding a project all in place to scale up to vocational sector and area of physical computing for industry. I think very broadly from what you've said, that sounds like it would be eligible. So in the absence of any further detail, I would say that was eligible. So thank you, everybody, and thank you for some really great and engaging questions as well. As I said, if anybody wants anything further, either come to the website or drop us an email.